this stitch. It's a basting stitch. So you want to use a long stitch on your machine, and you want to start and stop the long stitch an inch past the marks. So on the back of the sleeve, this is a double notch with the two little cuts, and this, on the front of the sleeve is a single notch. That's pretty much pattern language. Fronts always have single notches, backs always have double, so that you don't get confused. So you want to start and stop your stitches about an inch past the notches. So can you see that I went an inch past? And as I said, you want to leave long threads, and then you want to not have any knots, no back stitching. Now, in the diagram that Camille did, she has you do your first row of stitching 1/8 of an inch in from the edge, and then your second row 3/8 of an inch in, and then your third row 3/4 of an inch in. So she has 3 rows of gathering stitches, and then the green line represents the seam line, which is at a 1/2 inch. The more gathering rows you put in, the more control you have over the gathers. And if you want to go ahead and put the 3 rows in, that would probably be great. I don't like 3 rows, I like 2. So, but you want to make sure you always, if you're just using 2, put them in a seam allowances only. In other words, if you decide just to do 2, don't put one in the garment itself, just put them out here in the seam allowance, okay? So then, what you're going to do, after you get the gathering stitches in, is you're going to pull the gathering threads. This is really important. You have to pull them at the same time. Now, can you see that I made one of my rows of gathering stitches extend past the other one? Okay, so right now I'm going to pull out the thread on the one that's too long, so that I really am pulling them. Now, I don't know if you probably don't need to know this. This is a real simple garment, but usually the bobbin thread is the easier thread to pull. So if you remember, which I hardly ever do, which way my garment was facing when I actually put the gathering stitches in, the bottom thread pulls more easily than the top thread. So after you get your gathering stitches in, what I like to do is actually pin my shoulder notch to the shoulder on the shirt, because if you pin it first, you can kind of get an idea of how much you have to pull up for the gathers. And then down here, I'm going to go ahead and pin, I'm going to mark the back notches, just for now. I'm going to take these out after. But can you see the shirt is on the bottom and the sleeve is on the top? Can you see there's, looks like I have to gather it up about 2 inches. It's just easier to do it that way. So now I'm going to pull this, and I'm just going to pull it until it lies flat, just up to the top. It's better if you work from one side to the top and then start from the other side to the top.
So start from one side to
on the
like
bottom,
you
to
complete
the shoulder.
one section and then you go to another section.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going from, actually I'm at the back here where the double notches are. I'm going to gather from the back to the very top of the sleeve. Then I'm going to come over here and do the front separately. Okay, so now, looks like I gathered it a little too much. Okay, so now they're flush. Can you see that now they're meeting? Only I've got all these gathers that aren't distributed very nicely. So now that I have the gather stitches in, if you want to make sure that those gathering stitches don't come out, you can just put a pin there temporarily and take these threads and wrap them around the pin so that they stay while you're manipulating the stitches. See that I just wrapped them around the pin so that they don't come out and so that I don't make more. So now I'm going to try to distribute this ease so that it looks better. And remember that you don't need a lot of ease down here on your, you don't need down here ease. You need it more up along here because that's where all the motion is. So I'm going to gather this and try to make it look good. Oh, it's not looking as good as I want it to look. Okay, so now I'm going to pin this And then I will, leave it here while I do the other side. Okay, so can you see that this side is now pinned? All right, that side's all pinned. So now I'm gonna repeat the process on the other side. So once again, I'm going to see if my gathering stitches, oh wow. On this side, I actually did stop them at the same place. So I'm gonna pin first. Just speaking from experience, if you don't pin first, you really do sometimes over gather. You pull it up too much. So now I'm gonna have a look. It's about the same amount of discrepancy. It looks like I have to pull it up about a couple of inches. So I just pull and get all the stitches in there and then distribute them later. Okay, so now can you see that that's plenty? Now the two pieces look like they're the same length. So I'm once again going to put a pin here, and I'm going to wrap these threads around so they don't come out. And now I'm going to distribute these gathers. So you can do a flat felt seam up here, or you can do the mock welt seam where you just, you'll have to go back to the sewing book and look. But the mock welt seam is just where you push the seam allowance to one side and top stitch again. Okay, so I'm not going to finish this one right now. I'm just going to do it in a minute. But I'll show you what happens next. Okay, so then the next thing is you want to finish pinning your sleeve on. So I'm going to pin all the way to the side seam. Okay, so now this side's all pinned on. And I'll go ahead and pin this side all on. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew the sleeve seam and finish the sleeve seam in whatever manner I determine is good. Then the last thing you do is you will actually, and I'll demonstrate this when I get to this, you'd sew the side seam and the sleeve seam all in one long stitch. And then all you have to do is do the hem and you're done. Okay? So right now I'm going to go ahead and put one sleeve on, and I'll save this one for people who need it next time as a refresher. And then I'll call you over and I'll show you how to pin the side seam together and all that. Okay? Are there any questions? No?